Hello, Canada Files viewers. This is Aidan Jonah, editor-in-chief of the Canada Files. I'm here speaking with Mario Cavolo about a rather important issue that Canada and others have raised an absolute wild fervor about. That is Jimmy Lai and the trial that he currently faces. So, Mario, thank you for speaking with Canada Files.
Good to be with you. Thank you very much. And it's for everybody to know this evening, I'm coming from northeast China here in Shenyang. It happens to be my wife's hometown, and it's the capital of Liaoning province. I've lived here in China for 24 years and here in Shenyang for almost 6 years.
Okay, so let's start with Lie, of course.
Yeah.
You've done the video. You've done the video, and that's one of the reasons why I reached out to you. So let's talk about
Yeah.
Lie's history itself. So when this person, if I remember correctly, his paper was founded in the late 80s, correct?
Yep. About I was going to say the 90s. It's like something like 20 more, well over 20 years old. At
80s
the
or early
Apple
90s,
Daily.
for
Yeah.
sure. So Apple Daily is the big thing. So what did Jimmy Lai exactly get up to, let's say? Was he this sweet angel that you'd have Canada's government wanting you to believe?
Well, this is precisely the point. You have a cover business, in his case, the most convenient kind of controversial cover business in the West, which is the media. And the media, this neoliberal idea of press freedom, gives them a lot of cover to, in fact, engage in a lot of activities which are, most people would say, are nefarious, right? But I don't even want to talk about. I don't want to talk about things in terms of accusations. Let me put it to you this way. Let's talk about an example of what people should do, right? What should Jimmy Lai do? Well, if you have a newspaper, you should report the news and write stories. And okay, you shouldn't be uh, inciting the overthrow of a government. That's a crime in every country, every major country. Inciting the overthrow of a government is called sedition. Uh, Being involved with other foreign parties to do that, to encourage that, to make that happen, that's called collusion. And all of it together is called treason. Okay, so that shouldn't be why your quote media, that shouldn't be the purpose and goal of your press freedom. Something's wrong, especially when you look at Jimmy Lai and his other cohorts. I'll name them later. The main group of them that were inciting all of this, especially when you consider that their target government, okay, is the Chinese government. Now, if you have a target government that is nasty and has been killing people uh, and doing all kinds of nasty things to violate human rights, I could understand your interest in maybe wanting to overthrow them, even if it might be illegal. But that isn't the case. Um, the West has come to believe that there's things about China that make it evil and threatening. At least that's what people like, presidential candidate Nikki Haley says. But it's simply untrue. Since its founding in 1949, the government of China hasn't attacked any other nation or started war with any other nation. Okay. They're a very peaceful government. And especially since the last time they were in a war, I said they were in wars. They were in the Korean War. They were in the Vietnam War. And that was the last time that they were in any war at all. This is a country that wants to develop peacefully and avoid war at all costs. Hasn't been involved in any war. They didn't start those wars. They were dragged into those wars to defend themselves, not offensively. The United States starts wars. China hasn't started any war, doesn't want to start war, has gotten involved in war twice to defend its rights and interests, is building up its military to defend Taiwan, to defend the existing agreements that exist. This is a peaceful country. They aren't attacking and killing civilians of any other country. So I find it incredible that you try to treat a peaceful government that isn't killing people, isn't genociding anyone. They're not genociding Uyghurs. That's a political story that's been debunked. So here's Jimmy Lai from back in the 90s, and then he starts getting involved with CIA operatives through the National Endowment of Democracy, which was started up by the CIA, and starts getting funding. So he's getting funding from an overseas government to sow all of this trouble to, quote, support democracy in Hong Kong. Now, I don't understand why he even wants to support democracy in Hong Kong, because Hong Kong never was a democracy. Under the Brits, Hong Kong was a monarchy, and the government in Hong Kong took its orders from the Queen back in England. Okay, there was no voting, there was no democracy. So you're getting the idea of the picture that I'm painting here. The whole thing is ludicrous that he would make this effort to attack a peaceful country, saying that he supports democracy when democracy never existed there in the first place. I mean, all of these things just don't make sense and they don't add up. Now, you could be upset. Finally, you could be upset with a government, okay? Aidan, you and I you could be really upset with the Canadian government. I could be upset with the American government for a number of reasons, and I am. Okay, they're helping Zionist Israel slaughter children and women in Gaza right now. I'm really upset about it, but I'm not going to go out and incite and encourage and support violent protests to overthrow the United States government. And if I did do that, I would expect to be arrested like Jimmy Lai's been arrested. That's what happens when you incite and try to overthrow a government and create violence, which was violence against the innocent civilians of Hong Kong itself. They lit a guy on fire. They literally lit a man on fire. Jimmy Lai was paid to incite and encourage all of this violence against the government of Hong Kong, including ransacking the legislature, destroying buildings and businesses of Hong Kong citizens. So this is criminal behavior, and that's why he's on trial. He's not on trial for supporting democracy. He's on trial because he was arranging violent crime against the innocent civilians of Hong Kong. I'll stop there.
For sure. Now, I'll cite some reporting from journalist Dan Cohen back in 2019 when he reported
Oh, yeah.
the Gray Zone. Quote, leaked emails revealed that Lai poured more than 1.2 million to anti-China political parties, including 637,000 USD to the Democratic Party, 382,000 USD to the Civic Party. He gave 115 grand to Hong Kong Civic Education Foundation, Hong Kong Democratic Development Network. Both were co-founded by Reverend Chu Yu Ming, and Lai also spent 446,000 on Occupy Central's 2014 unofficial referendum. So Jimmy Lai is heavy, also very much a financial backer of these, anti-government movements. So far from being just a publisher, as you were hinting earlier.
Yeah, this is exactly the point. This goes far beyond being a newspaper publisher. This is really making trouble to where, again, innocent Hong Kong civilians were assaulted, their businesses were destroyed, government facilities were ransacked and attacked. It was just incredible. There's a huge amount of video of all this, by the way. You know, one of the hallmarks of the work that I do, I'm very proud. I often say, I'm not expressing my opinion. I didn't come on your show to express opinion. I'm just describing evidently known, evidently observable, there's a word called apodeictic. Information that is apodeictic means it is evidently observable. and beyond dispute. I'm just describing things that occurred. That's a lot different than sharing opinion. I could say, oh, I don't like Jimmy Lai because he's a troublemaker. No, 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 no. We have video. We have this information. We have this evidently observable facts and circumstances that are beyond dispute. And so in terms of his court case, I think we know where it's going to end up.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit about how Jimmy Lai gave backing to the riots in 2019?
Um, Only in terms of, let me say it this way, we've got Jimmy Lai, who of course had Apple Daily. How did he back it? Well, he published a lot of what other people were doing to incite the riots, to incite violence. That would be Nathan Law, Francis Hui, Joey Siu, and Agnes Chow, amongst.
Agnes Chow was now in Canada.
Yeah, we can jump on that if we have a minute, right? So she's running as she's a fugitive. She's an international fugitive. So once again, so here was Jimmy Lai with his newspaper encouraging and inciting these people who ended up, by the way, working with students who were on the campus of the University of Hong Kong. And we have the video, it's been out there in the media, on students on a campus organized to make Molotov cocktails. And there it was. You're watching students do this. So this was a repeat of, some of the people who had armed the students with weapons in 1989 back in Tiananmen. It was the same thing. They're students. How did they get Molotov cocktails? Who helped them get this? So it was these people that I mentioned. And of course, Jimmy with his newspaper was encouraging all of this. And you're not allowed to, again, I can be upset with America. You can be upset with Canada, but are you a nice guy, Aidan? I'm a nice guy. How do we define that we're nice guys? Well, we don't go out and encourage and incite and arrange violence against civilians. I don't do that. I'm not a criminal. I scream. So this is what they're doing. It's madness. So
For sure. And of course, the security law itself, as myself and Daniel G wrote for the Canada Files, actually does have some similar elements to what's in the national security law. So there's four categories, right? You have secession, subversion, terrorist activities, and collusion with a foreign country or external elements to danger national security. So if
yeah,
you look at the core tenets, and I wrote about, like I said, myself and G wrote about more, the exact length of punishments may be different, but the reality is what is concerning the national security law is actually not that different. And I'll link that article. That's back in
yeah,
2020. I'll link the article in the video description.
yeah.
So let's get into some of these things now. So the trial itself. So what do you think are the odds that Lai will be convicted under the national security law?
I don't see how he won't be, because the preponderance of evidence is even just the preponderance of known evidence that's on video. It's just there it is. There's the evidence on video. It can't be denied. There isn't any reason why the court wouldn't allow it to be, admitted as evidence. There's no reason to throw the evidence out. It's a rather crystal clear in terms of being able to prove the case. And remind me to mention later to prove the case to who the judges are. This is very important as well. We need to make sure we talk for a moment about, whether or not the man is going to get a fair trial. That matters too.
Well, why don't we just get right into that then? So,
oh, sure, sure. Well, then let me do it. And I don't have their names in front of me, but I want to mention here and exactly. We want to ask this question. Is Jimmy, because obviously you say, well, China is violating Jimmy Lai's human rights because they have him on trial for supporting democracy. Well, no. They don't have him on trial for supporting democracy. They have him on trial because he's a criminal that incited violence against the innocent civilians of the region of Hong Kong, right? So it's just pure straight criminal behavior. Okay, fine. Well, then the second thing they might say is, well, and it's not going to be a fair trial because, again, Beijing is involved. The mainland is influencing all of these things, and so he's not going to get a fair trial. Well, excuse me, but what we learned by doing just a little bit of research is that all three of the presiding judges over his trial were educated by and under the British law system. So they are not mainland Chinese. They have nothing to do with the mainland or anything else. They are under and following the British law system. One is a Singapore national who studied in the UK. The second practiced in Australia, and the third served under the original British Hong Kong colonial administration, right? So these are the judges who will be judging the actions of Jimmy Lai. I think it's going to be a pretty fair and reasonable trial for him. He should be pretty happy.
All right. So, well, this is a fantastic transition, anyways. I want to hit
Hmm.
now onto into Canada and that situation more broadly. So, so speaking of Canada, one of the reactions to to the situation around Jimmy Lai, has been for the Globe and Mail. That's a prominent Canadian daily, which the Canada Files is, we've been heavily critical of, especially with their coverage on Chinagate, their conduct around intelligence agencies.
Yeah, yeah,
Even when I actually ended up catching them via access to information documents. So think American FOIAs. That's what it is, government documents. They actually, one of the reporters was just asking, he says, "Hey, can we have the story?" I'm paraphrasing there. It's not critical journalism, just for context. So
yeah,
they end up calling for Beverly McLaughlin to to leave the Hong Kong Court of Final Appeal. So she's been a non-permanent judge there since 2018, and fascinatingly enough, she actually has refused. She's refused to leave. She's chosen to stay, and she does view the court as a vehicle to defend legal rights that are set out. So you have that. Speaking of judges, but more broadly, of course, you have Sebastian Lai, the son of Jimmy Lai, has really been desperately running around Canada trying to whip up support for his father. There was a Globe and Mail, an event the Globe and Mail did with him, and there was also you also had Mr. Lai meet with Canada's foreign minister Melanie Joly, and
yeah,
you basically, what happens here, you still have Canada, you obviously have Canada calling for the release. The House of Commons, so Canada's parliament, adopted a motion on the 12th of December calling for the release of Jimmy Lai. And this is where it's kind of hilarious, and it brings up the point you're making about this perpetration of an idea that Lai is a defender of democracy. Uh, Mr. Lai is a peaceful pro-democracy campaigner and publisher whose hugely popular newspaper, Apple Daily, was shut down for political reasons in 2021. That's
yeah,
how the Canadian state, the political
yeah.
elite, wants to shape the opinions about Jimmy Lai. But those are the main set of actions that have occurred in these last few weeks. What do you think of them? Kind of curious.
Uh, the the Western and Canada has learned well from its big bear neighbor, America. There is no greater source of longer, deeper, more articulate, uh, effective, accurate, and consistent political and media propaganda that is just constantly being spewed out than by the American system, which is by the certain American powerful people, certain parts and people of the government, and then in direct cooperation with the media. And Canada has, you know, come along to support all that. It's like, to use an example. Um, we, the United States government, fully support Israel's right to defend itself against the heinous October 7th attack by Hamas. And there's your official propaganda statement, which sounds perfectly good and accurate until you rephrase it and redefine it to what it really means. Okay. Which is we, the United States government, funds, we pay the money, $3.8 billion per year, to Zionist Israel, without which they could not afford to engage in this war in Gaza that they started on October 7th, of which they've dropped there's a bunch of equivalents out there. They've dropped enough bombs, just like the equivalent of 20 Hiroshima and Nagasaki's that the United States dropped the two bombs on Japan in this little area called Gaza, that they've slaughtered 20,000 children and women along the way, and that we're providing the funds. That's what it means. We support Israel's right to defend itself, which means we provide the funding and the bombs to Israel to wipe out the Palestinians in Gaza. That is the same thing as saying what they said, but the way they said it, of course, makes it sound a lot nicer. So this is propaganda, and no one is better at it. By the way, China's not good at propaganda. They're not good at it, actually. Everyone says that all the Chinese newspapers, oh, the Chinese propaganda outlet. No, 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 no. China's more a straight, boring Chinese outlets, which is the Global Times and China Daily, are more straight, boring media outlets that just report the straight information, not as propaganda. The real propaganda is the machine, the American propaganda machine, and Canada's part of it. And that's what all of this is. Frances Hui was on TV last week. She's the other one saying that our friend Jimmy Lai is on trial for supporting democracy. No, he's on trial for arranging and inciting and encouraging, with funds from another country, the violent assault against innocent civilians in Hong Kong and their businesses. That's what he's on trial for, not for supporting democracy. What a lovely thing, supporting democracy, you know.
For sure, for sure. Nothing more that the Western elites love than, of course, phrase mongering. It's one of their greatest talents as they pursue their sadistic foreign policies. So, Mario, it's been fantastic to talk with you. Is there anything else you'd want to say on the case of Jimmy Lai before we wrap up?
No, I think we're good. I really do. It's a very clear-cut situation. We know that whether the Western world doesn't want you to understand, the pundits, the propaganda pundits, they don't want the world to understand that China is now the largest, safe, stable, successful, capable, civil, and peaceful country on the planet. Their government is doing a very good job at being a government. Okay. And the Western governments are not doing a good job. So they demonize and attack China as a distraction so that people to keep people's attention off of their own incompetence. The Chinese government is a government that runs on results and outcomes, not on idealism, not on wokeism and all these other ideologies, which are getting terrible, terrible results in the West. And I don't need to explain this to people. We see what's happening there. We see the amazing things that are happening here in China. And what it really does is embarrass the leadership of the West. So they keep wanting to distract the people from understanding this is the truth. This is the reality of what's happening. And of course, that includes places like Hong Kong.
For sure, for sure. China is really a beautiful nation. I've been fortunate enough to go there twice this year, actually. I was
Nice.
Beijing in August, and then Hong Kong SAR right at the end of October slash beginning of November. Really fantastic, and I'm looking forward to coming back. I hope many a time. So, all right. So Mario Cavolo, non-resident senior fellow with the Center for China and Globalization. Mario, also a CCTV documentary host. Don't let me forget about
Yeah,
that. Man of
sure.
many talents.
Thank you.
Okay, Mario, thank you very much. Is there any links that people should check out? Just keep an eye on your work.
Best way to keep an eye on my work is to follow me on Twitter, exactly at my name, and also my newsletter on Substack, Counterpoint China, on Substack, which is also available for free to subscribe to. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Canfiles viewers, for getting to this point. We spoke with Mario Cavolo. Goodbye.